are new here, hi, my name is Sam Crones. I am a guitarist out of Southern California, and I tend to specialize in the whole Midwest emo math rock genre side of things. I make videos on the internet that kind of sound like the one that you just heard, and today I'm here to talk to you a little bit about open tunings. Whether you are kind of just getting started in open tunings, you have no idea what to do, or maybe you're just looking for a new train of thought on the whole thing, that's kind of what I'm here to talk to you about today. So, to kind of start out, I did want to mention there are like so many open tunings. You can actually make any chord into an open tuning. So like if you just are playing in standard tuning, you play a chord, tune to that chord, you know, tune to the intervals of that chord, because that's really what an open tuning is, right? So if we take a look at some of the most popular ones, I'm putting them somewhere on the screen right now. Those are just the ones that I see primarily in math rock, Midwest emo. You look at some of the most popular bands in these genres, that's usually what I find. My favorite out of this bunch is this one. It's open E. I like this one just because of the way that it plays, and that's one thing I wanted to get into, is that every open tuning is going to play a little bit differently. So if you're trying to use a different open tuning than the one that I'm discussing today, which is the open E, it's going to play a little bit differently, but you can still take some of these aspects and put them into those tunings and try and find your way around it. I can also make different videos especially on those specific tunings, so if you want to see that kind of stuff, be sure to leave a comment down there, let me know. Well, cool, okay. So let's just kind of take a look at this open tuning. Right now it sounds like this. Wow, okay, that's out of tune, just kidding. Okay, this is what it actually sounds like. Explosion of noise. First of all, it already sounds gorgeous, but you're gonna be like, wait, pause. That doesn't sound the same thing to me as my open E, which sounds like this. That's because I am downtuned to here, which is actually technically a D flat major chord or a C sharp major chord, whatever you want to call it. So usually where an open E major chord would be E, B, E, G sharp, B, E, I'm tuned to C sharp, G sharp, C sharp, F, G sharp, C sharp. That one's a tongue twister. Anyways, okay, so this is my tuning. The first step I think for anybody in trying to get a little bit more into playing riffs, writing riffs in their genre, is make sure your first step, you have a good tone. You're probably listening to this one. Sounds pretty good, I think, personal opinion, but there are a number of factors that go into my tone and what makes it what it is. The first one being the pickups that I'm using. The pickups that you're using are very important. A lot of people in this genre tend to use Telecasters because the tellies generally sound bright, telly, middle position. That one's always perfect for the genre. I know Jazz Masters, Jaguars are also very good, but you can still play these genres on like any guitar. This one in specific has the Fishman Fluence Tosinabasi pickups, so they're very like, they're active pickups. They handle very well under high gain, and they happen to handle the lower bass frequencies really nicely, which is why I play in drop tunings a lot more. The main brains behind this is Neural DSP's Archetype Pliny X. That's the plugin that I'm using for all of the tone. You're not hearing anything aside from my direct input into that plugin, so that's kind of cool. If you like that, go ahead and check them out. This is not sponsored or anything, I just like using their stuff. So now you're probably asking, why am I tuned so low? I like this tuning better specifically because it sounds lower. You can play chuggier chords that way. It's a little bit more oomph behind it if you're downtuned. And another thing for me particularly is my voice is kind of in a higher register. So when I play over a lower register guitar, it sounds a lot nicer because there's like this contrast in the bassiness and roundness of the guitar with kind of a floaty vocal on top. That's one thing that I love to mess around with when playing. But yeah, to kind of get into it a little bit more, the first way to really get into an open tuning like this one, or any open tuning, is to learn somebody else's song. You've probably heard this before, you've probably heard somebody say this before, but I genuinely believe that learning other people's music is the quickest way of improving upon something. Because what you're doing is you're taking somebody else's knowledge and their decisions, you're kind of picking apart why they did some things the way that they did. It starts to open up different opportunities for you. It opens up new techniques. I think it really depends on the genre, because open tunings, again, can be used so many different ways. If you're listening to a Midwest emo song in an open tuning, it might be, sorry, excuse the birds, probably gonna sound way different than a math rock song in an open tuning. Same tuning, different styles, right? As we're talking about how to use this tuning tailored to your specific style or your voice, or how to get your voice out of this tuning. But yeah, with the first way being to understand somebody else's song, and taking the riff that I showed you at the beginning of the song, roll it again for like 2 seconds. If you learned that riff, now you know all of the techniques that I was just playing in that riff, especially if you can like slow it down, learn it exactly note for note. You now have all of these techniques that are available to you that you can now play with in your own writing. So that's why learning other people's music is so helpful, because it allows you to learn their chord voicings, as to where learning somebody else's song in an open tuning might get you familiarized with the chord shapes that are very common in this tuning, so you can start using these chord shapes in your own riffs and in your own melodic phrasing. Now, that actually brings me to my next point, which is instead of learning other people's music, which I recommend you do as well, I think it's a good thing to try and at least know the basic major scale in your tuning and understand where that takes you with chords, chordal motion, because in any open tuning, I generally like to find the chords that I'm playing in so I can understand what kind of progression I'm playing. I used to think for some reason that not knowing any theory would actually benefit me in writing, because it would make it so much more natural when it comes to writing things that I think sounded good. But if you learn theory, it shouldn't really change the way that you write music, because the creative brain and the theory brain are two separate things that go hand in hand. The more consciously you understand music theory, the more subconsciously you'll start applying it to your music. Because you should not be thinking about writing differently. You should be thinking about it the way that you always think about it. Okay, this sounds good. Where can I take this to make it sound better? Let's take a look at this tuning in specific. Open tuning, you can actually use this for the open E. It's gonna sound a little bit different, but this is the one that I'm using again, open C sharp or D flat. This is my major scale, right? We've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 1. Now I'm gonna apply this same chord shape across all of these chords, and I'll describe those after I do it. Here are these notes again with fully stacked chords on top. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, back to 1. Cool. Now let's take a closer look at that. First thing to notice is that I'm literally just stacking 2 notes on top of each other on the 5th string and 6th string. So that's just the power chord. Because another thing to think about is interval training in these tunings. If you understand intervals a little bit better, you're gonna understand kind of what's happening down here. We take this shape, for example. This is a power chord. If you think about it like we're in standard tuning, essentially all you're doing is playing the 1 and the 5, right? But again, not super important. What's really important is actually giving this chord context, right? Because you play 1 and a 5, just sounds like a power chord. I'm gonna go through this very basically first. So we've got the 1, the 5. I'm gonna throw my 3 on top on the 3rd string, 1st fret. So that's a minor 2, right? Now I'm gonna take the same shape and we're gonna move it up to the minor 3. Because we're playing a minor 3, the shape is gonna stay the same, but we're just gonna move it up 2 frets to that 3, right? Now here's where it gets a little bit different. We now move this shape up to the 4 chord next, but the 4 chord in a major scale is major, so we're gonna have to raise that 3 a half step to make it major, right? So these 2 notes stay the same. This note changes. So we're gonna move it up. Move that up a half step, so instead of playing the minor 4, right, because that sounds kind of ugly in this context, we're gonna move it up, play a major 4. Right, same thing, we're gonna go up a whole step again to make this into a 5. Then we're gonna do the same thing again, except it's gonna be minor because it's a minor 6. We're gonna do this one more time. We're gonna turn it into a diminished chord, which would sound like this. And then we're gonna make it back to 1. Just like that. Okay, I'm out of tune again. Now that we've kind of gotten over chord shapes, you're gonna be like, this sounds pretty basic, which you are correct. And if we remember, we are using an open tuning so we can use the open strings. That's the whole point of tuning to an open tuning in the first place. It's so you don't have to stretch to make these crazy inversion shapes just to get some melody to sound good. You can use the open strings to your advantage. So here's an example of that in the same circumstance that I was just talking about. If you have just the open chord, I'm now starting to introduce the other open strings with these same chord shapes. So check this out. If I just strum it through. Sounds pretty cool, right? So all I'm doing there is I'm going through a major scale and I'm using those chord shapes, but what I'm now doing is these extra strings are kind of acting like pedal tones. So when I play them, these notes are staying the same, which gives it this very dreamy like feel, because all of the chords, even though the chords are changing, there are some notes that still sound the same, which gives it this very dreamy, like airy feeling, right? That's why we use open tunings, is to achieve this sound without having to bend to some crazy shape. So for a circumstance like this, it actually makes it easier to do things technique based, because you have more freedom, more fingers, more capability to pull off to open strings, all of that fun stuff. So, you know, whereas usually in standard tuning where you would have to deal with more inversions, here you can focus more on technique based stuff and still have like a coherent melody. I think by far open tunings are the best spot to work on technique, and the reason for that is because you're not so stumped up with theory, you're not so stumped up with understanding things. As long as you have a chord shape, you can use hammer-ons and pull-offs to your advantage to make something sound a little bit more unique than you would in like standard tuning or something. So for something like this, I'm gonna give you an example of another riff that I wrote not too long ago, and let's break it down, okay? So this is that riff. So if we just look at that riff, for example, I'm using more techniques in this tuning than I usually would in standard tuning, right? So the first thing is tapping. Anywhere that you tap on the 12th fret, granted if you're in the key of the open tuning that you're in, this for me being C sharp or D flat, everything that I tap on that 12th fret is going to be in key. Every single thing, right? Because there are only so many notes on that 12th fret and they're all in the tuning. So for something like this, that already sounds unique. I'm involving hammer-ons onto these chords because it's only 2-3 fingers. That's the only thing that matters. I hammer that on, then I tap. And you get a plus if you can actually pull off to the chord that you're playing on. That was just something improvised using this technique, you know, where I'm hammering on and tapping at the same time, but I'm including a combination of chords that I know, and I'm playing a 2, 2 a 4, 2 a 6, 2 a 5, right? And blending that with something like, and this is really like kind of brainless for me. I'm just tapping 2 fingers here on the 12th fret, so I've got 1st string and 3rd string with my 1st and 2nd finger. That's all I'm doing. So that's truly what I love about open tunings. It's the flexibility to use more than one hand, because you're not tied up using this hand to play the chord that you just had to fret. A little bit more freeing that way. Again, you can use this technique in any open tuning. I've done this in F, A, C, G, C, E, D, A, E, A, C sharp, E. Those are just the most common ones, but those are the ones that I generally like to cycle through because, again, each open tuning is gonna be a little bit different in like playability. Essentially what I'm trying to say here is if you're not having fun in an open tuning, try changing the open tuning that you're using. Some people just resonate better with different ones. The chord shapes are just more interesting to their brain. I don't really know how to describe it, but for example, like Jack, my bandmate, he only really uses D, A, E, A, C sharp, E, while I use open C sharp, D flat. We play the same songs, but split amongst 2 different tunings. So I'll be in this tuning, he'll be in a different one. And the reason for that is because he just likes those shapes better. He likes the way that they're built. He understands it a little bit better than he does this tuning. Same thing for me with this one. It's just like, I understand this one. I've gotten to spend a lot of time with it. I'm comfortable with these chord shapes and I'm comfortable moving around in them. So that's why I use this one more. But if I'm not like resonating with this one for a day, I'll literally change tunings for a day. That's why I use so many different tunings. It's because you really have to be in the mood for a certain tuning. Sometimes some of them inspire more than others, and that's, if I could give one piece of advice, I'd just say, like, don't give up on playing because you feel uninspired. Try switching something up. If you're not having fun in an open tuning, try a different one. You never know. You might stumble across some chord, one chord that can change the direction of your entire experience with a certain tuning. And again, because these tunings are open, you can use a lot of techniques and make them sound musical, even though you're just getting used to the technique. I think in open tunings, you can also challenge the traditional way of writing lead lines. So if you're used to writing lead lines with a pick and you're used to playing like high up, not playing the chord progression, open tunings can kind of change that. They have kind of changed that for me me thinking about lead lines, at least, because usually when somebody thinks about a lead line, they're like all the way up on the neck, they're playing a solo, they're shredding, doing whatever. But I mean, think about it. If you are able to blend the right hand with the left hand seamlessly in your playing, it ties the whole thing together melodically as well. So in that example that I just gave you, I was playing this up here with my right hand, which can be considered a melody if it's put into context. Now to finally kind of tie this all together, let's take a look at that same riff that I was showing you at the beginning of the video. Okay, really all that's happening here, if you got a chord, you got a chord, you got a chord, and it repeats. What's really happening is I'm playing a melody in my right hand, so challenging the regular lead line norms, right? I'm playing a melody in my right hand that sounds like this. But what I'm doing is I'm filling in the gaps with my left hand. I'm playing a chord, and then I'm filling in the gaps. Then playing the lead line, filling in the gaps. Playing a lead line, filling in the gaps, playing a lead line. It's just patterns, for me at least. So I'm going right hand, left hand, right hand, left hand, right hand, and then pull off, move to the next chord. So all together. That's why it works. It's because even though it sounds fast, it's not overly complicated, just because it's kind of taking some of the weight off of one of your hands, putting it onto the other hand, so your hands are working together in a circumstance to make something sound faster or cohesive and very cool. With that being said, I hope this taught you something. If it did, make sure to leave a like down there. Anything helps, hit subscribe. All that fun stuff. I'm gonna post more videos on here, so if you have anything that you want to see, feel free to leave it down in the comments. I will read those and respond, and if you have any questions, you can DM me on Instagram, or leave a comment. I'll reply to the comment. Yeah, I also give lessons and I sell tabs, so if you like what you heard here, be sure to check out my store, which is also linked down below. You can buy me a coffee and learn one of my riffs. Could be pretty cool, and very cool of you to do so. Yeah, thanks very much. I will see you around. And until the next one.